So I usually tell people when it comes to style, what you should try to do is not just focus on one artist because
Uh-huh.
it becomes very obvious, like perhaps like where you got your influences from. A better strategy is to focus in on um, just like kind of a general idea of like the kinds of artists that you want to be like. So you saw
Yeah.
like how I when I was talking to, I think it was Victor, and I showed like a bunch of different line art images,
Uh-huh.
and then I was talking about how like I want to kind of get somewhere in between these artists. The reason is because like many of those artists already are really good and already working. Don't necessarily want to just be like them.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to like find something that's in between, something that may not have been done before, you know. And the way to do that is to just like look at all of them and find ways to kind of put them all together for my use. And the best way to do that is just to start drawing like exactly like them in my sketchbooks, in my studies, you know?
So when you say like drawing exactly like them, do you mean like trying to nail their process down or just
Yeah. I
create a
approach it.
copy?
Yeah, I approach it like I'm like a miniature scientist,
Okay.
like a scientist or like an archaeologist, probably even better example, where like they're digging up, dinosaur bones,
Uh-huh.
but they're like trying to put the pieces together, but they don't necessarily know exactly everything right away or know for sure 100%, but they have a pretty good guess to what it could be. And so, for instance, like, drawing like these people, I'm going to like learn a little bit of like, okay, what makes them possibly draw the way they do. And I'm going to try to do little tests to be sure, you know?
Uh-huh.
But I never just look at one. I draw from several because I want to like build all my habits around an artist that doesn't exist, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to be eventually. But if you just look at only one person, you're almost certainly going to be able to learn how to draw like them if you just keep painting from that style. And like I said, I don't like that because it actually pigeonholes you in a lot of different ways. Like you might actually start to find that if they don't have like a thing drawn, then you don't actually know how to draw that thing either.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe they know how to draw, but they just don't have. It's not easy to find. But if you like kind of like look at all these different artists and find pieces of what they do well, and you put that into your work, that's how you will evolve. And so like for instance, let me go back. Okay. So, for instance, there's this great image here, you know. Now, Sean Murphy, like I don't really like his anatomy per se in this example, and a lot of his characters' faces are very simplistic and stylistic. But like I said, he focuses all of his attention on style. Right? I watched the talk up from him. Excuse me, super tired. I watched a talk from him, and he was talking about how when he was working on this project, they kept on asking him to draw like artist X, and he'd try, and it would just fail, and then he would try again, and it would just fail, and it just kept on pressuring him. And then he's like, you know what, like. If you want this artist X style, then why don't you just hire artist X? He kind of
Yeah.
like lost his mind for a second, and then he's like, well, fuck it, man. I'm just gonna draw it how I like to draw, and that's when he did this, right? And he says it's a mixture between like European style and Asian
Uh-huh.
manga. That's like the stuff that he really enjoys. He likes those both of those styles, and that's kind of where his work comes from. You know, And then he did that, and they're just like, all right, this is actually pretty cool, you know. And then they kind of stuck with it. You see the point I'm making, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't necessarily like this um, for the what you call it, for the anatomy, let's say, but I do like the confidence in terms of like shapes, right? That I do like. And so sometimes I see like a lot of other artists will focus in on what they don't like, right? And so for me, it's like, okay, I like the arm here, but I think he could have done a better job of the anatomy. And so it's like, well, maybe I can just do what I think would have been better. And this is more like what I would see from someone like an artist that I see like Joe Mad. You know, like I like his structure of anatomy. And so like this isn't an exact replica, but I am definitely putting my own flavor, and then like his. So there's probably a reason why we should bring the chest in. Since okay, and then now I'm gonna like start to construct some of these lats, bring in the rib cage the way that I would draw it, and then his chest is inaccurate, but I don't care. I'm just focused on like that movement that he's getting that I don't necessarily have yet, you
Uh-huh.
know? And so I'm like learning from this drawing in a way that's going to advance my own personal style and things that I enjoy, right? Like he's got a very stylistic abs. Those are like not real abs, but I don't I don't harbor that. I'm like, but that's cool. So maybe I should like evolve what I think abs should look like, you know,
Yeah.
and then put my version. This is like a very lean Superman that I've drawn here. There's this really cool version of Superman that used to be a friend of mine, not anymore. I found out he's a scumbag. He had this like idea of like Superman being like a ninja, like
Huh.
Superman losing his superpowers, and then Batman trains him to actually like learn how to fight. And so like
That's interesting.
so Superman, like while he's lost his powers, right? And he's kind of like trying to get back to where he was, like his powers are slowly getting back, but like he's learning how to like be a ninja, you know?
Huh.
Um I thought that was such a cool concept because that's true. Like it's like if you've never had to like learn how to fight in your life because you're so strong, and then you actually fight against like the whole idea was that he fought like against Doomsday or something, and Doomsday was built for killing and murdering and was like a built soldier, like a
Yeah.
monster. And so Superman fights against Doomsday, and Doomsday was actually as strong as Superman, but the defining difference was that he was like a soldier, right? So it's
Uh-huh.
like, just like real life, like if you have two humans fighting against each other, if one person knows how to fight, like an MMA fighter, versus your average Joe, obviously the average Joe's going to get his ass whooped, right? And
Yeah.
that was kind of the premise, is that like Superman has never had to fight somebody that was as strong as him, right? Like even like you can make arguments for like General Zod, like he didn't live on that planet long enough for him to soak up all that energy. So even though General Zod had like the skill, he was never gonna be able to really compete against Superman in that way, right? Anyway, the point I'm making is that like it was cool. It's a cool concept of like so he gets his ass whooped and dies, and he doesn't even kill Doomsday properly, and then he comes back. Batman's like, okay, check it out, dude. I'm gonna teach you how to fucking fight, you know. And he's like, and I can now because like you're weak, you're just as strong as a human. And so, and then he teaches him, and then as Superman's strength coming back, it's like becoming clear and clearer to Batman. Batman can't just fucking fight him anymore, you know. But at that point, it's already okay because he's already learned how to become a fighter, right? And
Uh-huh.
then he's challenged. He's challenged by like some other Kryptonians who are again like our generals who can fight, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And but now he's like Batman. Like he can fight like Batman, you know. And
Yeah.
so like these guys are like coming at him, and instead of like making it a whole big fighting scene, like he like jujitsu them like superhero style, right? And like incapacitates these people like effortlessly without actually throwing them through buildings and shit, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like in control of his fights way more, you know, and it's a cool idea. So so as I was drawing that, it just reminded me of that. But getting to the point of like, you know, style, like you saw what I did, right? Like I wasn't
Yeah.
focused on drawing exactly like that, but I did copy it, right? I like looked at what he did, and then I just tried to like fill in the gaps. And you know, unfortunately, you know, in your position, you might not have that opportunity or that luxury
Yeah.
because you're not nearly as skilled, right? You don't have like a good bedrock to build off of. That's
Yeah.
why it's really important to just practice all the fundamentals.
Uh-huh.
Then when you start to try to practice style, it becomes even more valuable, you know, or not more valuable, it becomes more easier because at least you know how to like render basic forms and stuff. So you're not focused on that and trying to learn how to draw at the same time, right? You're not trying to focus on two different problems.
Yeah.
You're not trying to solve how to draw and try to do style. But I do think that there is value like to practice style as well as when you're trying to learn both, because it kind of helps build. It does help build like that foundation of like the kind of artist you're going to be.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I wouldn't just stop there. Like I'll look at, you know, uh, like the Sean Gordon Murphy stuff, but then I would like look at the Callum Alexander Watt stuff. What's with these artists with three names? Like all these line artists. Yeah, J. Scott Campbell. What the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what? Like Jim Lee, dude. There you go. Jeez. But you know what I mean? Like, I would then look at like Callum Alexander Watt stuff, and I have a whole different objective. Like that is like I'm like no, I'm trying to like actually master this precisely, you know,
Yeah.
and then maybe trying to find out how to put style into that, like a little bit more stylized, you know.
Okay.
And so that way, like I sneak in a little bit of what I think is cool from like Mike Mignola into what Callum Alexander Watt does, because obviously Callum Alexander Watt maybe he may appreciate what Mike Mignola can do, right? Like I'm sure he wouldn't be like, oh, this is garbage artwork, right? But like he clearly doesn't care about putting that in his own artwork. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And where I actually do think there's a lot of value in having a lot of awesome graphic read in your design, you know. Um, and so that's something that I would try to do if I'm trying to master this comic book style. Anyway, cool beans. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I was also looking into like when you do self-publishing, um, if you have colors and stuff, like it's the less colors, the better. So doing graphic is also just a practical tool um,
Oh right.
for like print. I was just looking at that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like remarkably cheaper when you have to deal with like several different colors. But I mean, it's cheaper in general these days than it was in the past. There was like very clear, like they had like plates, which is I think is still a thing you can do. But like plates, basically like each plate, like a printing press, would have like a different like set of colors, or I'm sorry, a different set of shapes for a very specific color. So if you had like a black, you have like a plate that's just for black. And if you had like red, and then you have a plate just for red. So that when they would basically just stamp them onto the page, like one plate and then the next plate and the next plate. So each plate, like so, the more colors you have, the more plates you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like there's in the past, like it was very, very clear, like they needed like strategies. That's why they come up with like cool halftone, like texturing and crosshatch methods, you know, to kind of create the illusion of gradation in
Uh-huh.
their forms. You know, I don't know if I'll be able to. I don't know if I necessarily need to do that crazy stuff. I was looking at 30 Days and Nights comic, and I was like, oh, cool, I love that movie. And the comic's gross. It's really bad.
Oh.
Style, I don't know if this like it was the actual one, but it was like really bad. but it goes back to the point of like I don't think anyone really cares because that ended up becoming a movie because the story is so cool, you know, that I think people were just like look past the the really grossness of it.
Hey, Anthony, what's your story going to be about?
None of your business. Well, I have actually several different stories. I have this one story that it takes place in space, and it's like one person stranded on like a planet, and they basically become best friends with their autopilot, like their navigation, essentially their the computer, right? This is a little bit of like 2001 Space Odyssey, but like actually friendships instead of like murder and or like deception, and then and a little bit of like Castaway, right? And then there's like a twist at the end about like where they actually are in the timeline of our universe and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But it's not nearly as valuable as the friendship part of the story, right? It's really just commentary on friendship, right? What does it actually mean, you know? But then I realized like, you know, that's way too serious. I should like try to go a little bit more like fun. And so then I have this other story that I've always had in my mind where it's basically about just a post-apocalyptic world that you've seen many times before, but the difference is that it's a fun version of a post-apocalyptic world. Like the world is definitely fucked up and destroyed, but everyone's having a good time. I think there was a show that did something similar. I think it was Last Man on Earth. It did have its depressing moments. This is going to have none of that. Maybe there will be some sense of existential, you know, premise there, but it's not going to be the heart of it, if that makes sense. It's the heart of it is like, what if, you know, the post-apocalyptic world is bad and many people die, but there's like a surplus of supplies and stuff, and so there's a bunch of people having a good time, and there's just jokes all day. It's just constantly just joking around and having a good time, and the title of the story was Tank, Car, Horse, like a comma in between each one or a period, right? And it's basically just a group of people who've acquired a tank and they have a car and a horse, and they're just kind of like just going around the fucking the destroyed world and just having a good time. And again, there's some conflicts here and there. It's not like all good time, but it's more fun than it is like depressing, you know. Like they find like a bazooka, for instance, and they're like, oh dude, dope, and then they go to like a city and they just try to blow up the city. It's like, if, you know, like Grand Theft Auto, but real life. But there's no consequences, there's nobody around, you know. And so it's like, it's just a lot of fun. And then like I said, cracking lots of jokes, doing silly shit, and then there's some conflict here and there, that, you know, because you can't just have it all fun and games. There's got to be some drama, right? Like I think the tone is very similar to, like, if you see the TV show The Umbrella Academy, which again was from a comic, and which again didn't have like this beautifully painted style. It's just telling the story the best you can. Same thing with Walking Dead. It's just like all hand drawn, like black and white. Right, like I'm doing this painting right here. Like it would be cool to like have like all of my comic panels look this good. But it's like, well, that's not the point of the story. Is to have good visuals, right?
Yeah, it'll take a long time too.
It'll take a little bit longer, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I'll do as good of a job either, because then when it starts to come to like painting like a perspective, like spaceship, like I was talking about earlier, that's gonna be more work than I want to do. You know. But I can do it, like draw it, definitely, because I'm not a bad artist, so I can definitely try to draw, and I can obviously paint my covers really dope. So that's the way that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I think that might be a much more approachable story, right? And just have fun with the writing and not really worry about like plot as much, like just make a really hilarious kind of adventure, and that I think could be easily picked up to become like a TV show or like a film. That could be cool. I have people that I know that would probably do something to help out with that. It's got to be good.
Yeah, it seems like comics are kind of like the easiest way to get a story out there.
Yeah, because it just shows a lot of what can be done, right? Like when you do a comic, like you can show the story in its purity, right? And it's like it translates really well, especially if you do a good job, to film, because I mean, if there's any evidence of this, like look at all the Marvel movies, right? Like these goofy ass movies or these goofy ass comic books are starting to really make people say, wait a minute, what other goofy ass comic books are out there? And it's like all these movies, and it's like it has like a huge track record of success versus like video games, right? Video games is a whole different thing. Like it's not the same parallel, right? Because it's interactive. One is interactive, the other one isn't. So I think that's the disconnect. Books work pretty well, but then there's always the problem of like, well, in the book, people's imaginations could have way more of a budget than the actual movie, and so like a lot of the ideas are just harder to translate to live action, right? Where in a comic book, like someone has to still draw it, right? And there is so that even just that one like ability to have to draw it, even though like I'm not limited to budgets, because if I can draw it, then it's in, like if I want to draw like a nuclear explosion blowing up like 17 different planets all at the same time, or some sort of crazy cosmic event, or like like Gurren Lagann, like having giant mechs throw solar systems like frisbees. Like if I can draw it, then it can go in, but even that, like you might draw it and you might realize it's not that cool, or maybe you need to rethink the way that you draw it, so you're already answering plenty of the questions that usually are problematic when you translate a book to a movie or a TV show. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. Like I think comics just make a better opportunity to do just that, right? But I don't think that it's at the same time, I don't think that it's that easy still to just make a comic book and just sell it to publishers or to movie houses. You got to still have connections. You still have to go to cons and put it out there and hope that it gets some reach. Obviously, people are always looking for like the next big thing. So I'll just have to make it good. So my first idea, although I think it would be like kind of like a critically acclaimed story, like I really believe there could be some value there. It's not fun, and it's really dramatic. Like it's the kind of thing that like there's some comedy and there's some like lightheartedness in it for sure, because you have to have that, in my opinion. But it's like way too serious, way too soon, and I'm not a really good writer, so it makes more sense to start with something a lot more silly. That my bad writing would actually be the charm of the story versus the crutch, if that makes sense. Like recognizing my weaknesses.
Like a One Punch Man or something.
Yeah. I think a good example of this is like Toy Story versus WALL-E. Like so Pixar actually had WALL-E as one of their first ideas. It was like amongst many ideas that they were pitching, but they felt it was like way too much work. It was way too like dystopian and too intense to kind of start. So Toy Story was like a lot more lighthearted, and they can still push like some heart in there, And I think I can do the same. Like I can like try to push a lot of heart and fun, and then try to squeeze a little bit of drama when I feel like its opportunities arise, But like, yeah, even like you're chuckling of the idea of like going into the city blowing up, like you can imagine how hilarious that could be, And the closest thing I could think of that comes close to the charm of that would be like Tank Girl. I think Tank Girl is a good example of something that I want to popularize, like that aesthetic and that type of theme. Just try to make it less weird, more relatable. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm thinking I can do that. Yeah, especially because too, like the game that me and my friends are working on is super dark. You know, and so I'm like, okay, I kind of want to reserve all my darkness, my brooding, for that, and then I'll just like let this be a free for all project. I have several other story ideas, but my friends are helping me write the scripts and stuff. Those are just straight scripts. We're trying to sell them as movies right off the gate.
Okay.
But it all takes time, man. It just takes time. And you know, the reason why it does is like everyone else is busy, they're doing their things. It's just all slow moving, and I don't got time for that. I have my own time that I can use for myself. So I was like, what can I do? And so I went to the comic event last week, as you guys know, and I was like, oh yeah, man, I can totally do a graphic novel, man. I don't know, I keep forgetting to do that. And maybe it's just because I'm always like, it's so much work. So you know what? Fuck that. I'll just do it. I'll just learn how to do it. Along with like keep learning how to program and just keep becoming a creator. Because what I really enjoy more than creating is teaching how to create, teaching other people how to do it. So if I become successful at many of these different things, I can teach other people how to do it too. So you pick your poison. You want to be a concept artist, I can teach you how to do that. If you want to be a comic book artist, I can teach you how to do that. If you want to be a game designer, I can teach you how to do that. The only thing I can teach with confidence is how to be a good concept artist, because that's what I do to this day, you know? Anyway. Cool indeed.
Do you still take on assignments for concept art? And
yeah, always. I like to do work. I just don't like it to be my only thing. You know, like if I didn't work at all for like a month, I think I'd be okay. Just from my teaching and my mentorships and stuff, and I prefer that. But it keeps me fresh. You know, it's like it's nice to be able to like work for other people, get feedback. You know, not always live in this like do as I say mode. You know. Like have other people be able to tell me what to do. Like it's really good. Like, you know, it's really good to have feedback outside of yourself. I was actually trying to think of a way to like build like a society or like a group, a social group, like on Discord or something, where we just give each other feedback constantly. Else, I've been thinking about like creating websites. Like, you know, there's this app called TikTok, right? Where people like do these kids like do these short videos of them doing something silly, and then someone can reply to that video with another video, and then someone can reply to that video with another video, right? So it's like replying to videos after video, you know what I mean? And I was like, what a fascinating idea, you know, what a cool concept that is, right? So that you can like follow the trail of videos based off of how they're commented, you know? And I thought that was great. And I was like, what if like you can do that with paintings? Like you can just like start with one painting. Like what if I just stopped here and then I just pass it along, you know? Cool. And then like you could follow the trail of people like working on the same painting, you know?
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool, but I don't know how to design that website. I'm going to talk to Leo about it this weekend.
Sounds like you have too many projects on your...
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's a little too much. Like, okay, I got the programming, right? But that's like slow moving. That's like I work on that like every 2 or 3 times out of the week, you know, because I'm waiting on my friends, you know? And so I'm like twiddling my thumbs. And then like the script stuff, the story stuff that my other friends are just working on, I'm not really doing anything with that, you know? And then obviously I teach and I do my tutorials. That's really takes the most of my time, and along with freelance. So that my free time is usually devoted to programming, and whatever else I want to do. And so I've been thinking, you know, I have a lot more free time because I'm kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to focus all my efforts on programming for this one project instead of keeping. So I was thinking about making my own game, like outside of what we're working on, but I was like, no, I should just focus all my attention on this, you know, when it comes to programming. And then on the side, I should do something else. And that's why I decided to do, try to create like a comic book. So I'm going to try to like write the script today, the first issue, and then see where it goes.
Cool.
Yeah, and then start to practice illustrating it as I just kind of wait around. And it's cool because I can just practice it on my iPad Like I already did like a practice sketch. It's on my Facebook, and I'm just gonna keep
The robot
practicing.
is talking.
Yeah, yeah, and like the humor from that like caption is kind of humor that you would expect.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'm design. I already like designed like the first scene idea. Right.
What settings do you usually use with your brushes when it comes to transparency? Like, do you use opacity or flow?
I mess with flow whenever I'm blending, but this is just a good old standard round brush,
Yeah.
and it has some hardness removed from it, so it's not completely
Ah,
100%, but it's only like 5%. It's not that dramatic, but I just kind of like it. And then 40% flow, so it's like right in a good sweet spot to be a brush that I can paint with from the beginning, as well as something I can blend with. It's a little bit of both. I get this crispy renders.
and opacity is just set to pen pressure, or?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no secret sauce. Sorry, man. Sorry.
Just curious, man.
There's actually this setting. It's called render.
Awesome.
Render for me. You just turn that on, and then all you got to do is just let it render. You don't have to do a thing. Just step away from your computer.
Isn't that like 3D modeling or Keyshot or something?
Yeah, you still have to make the models though. It's not.
Yeah, I've just been using opacity right now, like in no flow, but I should try using it more.
Yeah, you'll see the difference with flow. It feels a little bit more like more controlled.
Mm.
It's not so aggressive.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also my brush has spacing to it, and that actually helps.
Ah, and in what way does it help?
It gives it like some subtle texture. See that?
Yeah,
And that's really nice.
cool beans.
Cool beans indeed.
But
Any
you
other
use-
questions?
You use
go ahead.
texture. You sometimes use a brush with actual texture, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but not that often.
Mm.
Only if I feel like I'm going to do a painting with a lot of texture.
Oh, okay.
Like if I have that intention. But I genuinely like cleanliness in terms of my designs, and I like to put the texture in by hand.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's like I can design the shape of my textures. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Versus like a texture brush is a little bit it's like kind of like the Wild West, you know? But like I can like sculpt in my textures versus relying on texture brush. Now it's not to say a texture brush can't do some of that for you too. Like you can like use a texture brush that gives you like that T-sherry level of textures. In fact, those are my favorite kind of texture brushes that don't like just give you all of it. They just kind of give you like that secondary T-sherry like level, like skin pores type of texture. The kind of thing that I don't like to paint in, you know? But like the larger scaled scratches and dings, like I want to have some control over that.
Mm.
Right, like the ones I'm putting on this guy's shoulder pad. Yeah, I think this post-apocalyptic world too is gonna be dope because I could design like all sorts of kinds of characters. Just be real goofy with it. I just need to learn how to draw a car and a tank and a horse. I don't know how to draw these three things. But I thought it was just hilarious to think like this caravan of like the last survivors have these three different vehicles that have these three different things. Like there was gonna be like this tank battle that I had in my mind where they're like having a battle with another person that has a tank, and then they have the guy with the horse. One of their friends is on the horse, and they're like, "Hey, just like run up to that fool and just like throw dynamite on him." Like I don't think they have any guns, you know. And so like she gets on her horse and she just rides over there and just tosses the dynamite on their tank, you know. And like the people on the opposite side are they're just like watching her just like stroll up on them, you know. And she's like basically dodging them like what you call it, like Mongolians or like the Khan army, whatever. Like they were riding a horseback they're fucking ninjas. And I thought that would be pretty, like, such a contrast. Like, you don't imagine like a horse beating out a tank, but basically that's what happens. And they come up to that conclusion when they realize that they don't have any kind of other weaponry other than the tank themselves. And I thought that could be a good one, good scenario. And then another thing is, it's like, I like the idea of just like doing like a sports car, like having a really dope sports car. That in general, it's just a cool idea, just to have a car that you don't have to worry about speed limits and all that fun stuff. I think there can be a lot of fun there. And then just put everything wrapped around these ideas. But anyway. All right, one last question. Calling it a day. What is that? Who's making those noises?
Oh, sorry.
How dare you?
We just wanted to confirm that it's the 27th, right?
The last week of this month, yes.
All right, the 27th is the next lesson.
Yeah, I'm going to G2C, Jordan. Are you going to G2C?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to.
Oh, what? We should meet up.
Oh, yeah. I've never been there.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I don't really know. I live in Florida, but I've never been to GDC.
When are you gonna be? Wait, so you live out there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. When are you gonna be out and about?
At the conference.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be there Tuesday till Saturday. I'm leaving. I arrive on Tuesday midday to night, and then I'm gonna leave Saturday morning.
Oh, okay.
Or Saturday evening, I think.
I'll probably be there like every. I don't know. I guess I'll go every day or something.
All right. Well, there's an art station party. You should reserve if it's not sold out already. It shouldn't be sold out in the way that you had to buy. It's like capacity thing.
Oh, okay.
So there might not be capacity is what I'm getting at. So you should look into it. Just type in art station GDC. Actually, let me see if I can find it. I'm going to that. I'm going to go to a Quixel one, but that's VIP only, bro. Sorry, man. Sorry. Here, hold on. Here it is. I found it. It doesn't look like it's sold out. Here, I'm going to put in the Skype for you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you're on Facebook, add me. Well, actually, what's your Jordan Thomas? So there's one from Austin, Texas. I don't think that's you.
I'll add you because you're probably easier to find.
What the F? Oops. Jordan Thomas, artist. Works as artist. Is that new job at artist?
No.
I don't think that's you.
I just sent you a friend request.
Did you just send me a request right now? Oh yeah, that's definitely not you. All right, and then I'm gonna add you to our GDC group so that you can chill.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Add people. Jordan. I just added him. What the hell? It shows the other Jordan Thomas too. No, not that one. All right, there you go. So there's a few of us in there. Just keep that chat available at all times so you can see what we're up to. But I'm doing a talk on Wednesday and Thursday. One for the Academy of the Arts and then one for Wacom. I'm not sure any of the details for either of them. But
is the one at the Academy of Art? Is it at the Academy of Art?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So if you go, or you can go, I'm sure you can hang out. But this is how we're gonna do it. That's how we organize. Anyways, cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you think of this artist? This one right here. This. Oh yeah, this person's pretty dope. Ooh, especially the Guild Wars 2 stuff. Super good. Yeah, I like it. I think I actually worked with them for a second. So it's pretty good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think-
Arenanet, they don't really care about refinement. They're all
really?
about they're all about ideas. So much so that I was kind of worried working with them because like I redesigned like a character like several different times, and it wasn't that I was doing a bad job. They just kept on like changing the narratives, right? And not to give too much because it's still NDA, right? It's like imagine like if I was drawing a bunch of bears,
Yeah.
or let's I think there's actually bears in their projects. I didn't draw any bears, but like let's like use a different example. It's like let's say I was drawing a bunch of apples.
Yeah.
And I'm like drawing apples, and they're like, all right, we're gonna make these apples red, you know? And I'm like, all right, cool. And you know what? Like apples are cool, but we're gonna actually draw pears instead. And I'm like, oh, okay. And you know, the pears are gonna be orange, so they're not gonna even be like what you would normally see. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it would be like the same character idea. You know, it wouldn't be like a whole new character that happens to be a pear, right? It would be like if the character's name was like Joseph, and the first attempts of Joseph was all these apple designs that I did, and they're like, all right, you know, we're redesigning Joseph as a pear. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, and it was like that for like years, you know, on like few designs. But like they like to work that way. They like this kind of like blue sky approach of just like, let's let the art help us as well as let the writing help the art, you know, kind of like this back and forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they get like a lot of like crazy looking art in their game at the end, and as well as like really amazing narratives. I think this is why. But it's like flying on the tail of your suit, you know, it's like coattails. It's like really, it's really intense. It's I don't know what's going on. But the kind of artists I was working with, they were also just doing crazy shit, and it was really cool to see. So,
it seems quite like impressionistic, like the art.
Yeah, I had a friend who worked for them way in the past. I don't know if they're like this anymore, but he told me like he hated working there, not because they were like this kind of like militant studio or something like that, and they had like all these terrible ideas. He said like as a modeler, it was just really hard because they would send you like things to model, and they would be like super loose, like the drawings you probably just showed, right? And then they would change. Right, like they'd be like, all right, you know what, we're not drawing apples anymore, we're doing pears. So like all the work that was done on the previous models were like pretty much just scrapped. And for modelers, like for concept artists, it's less of a problem. We're like, all right, yeah, sure, let's do it. Fucking let's keep going, bro. Let's keep changing everything, you know? It's not as hard for us to make those chunks of changes. But like as a modeler, like you spend like a month sometimes on like one character, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then like, and you feel pretty proud of it. You put all that time investment, and they're just like, psych. It's you know it's really demoralizing, he was saying. But that was like 7 or 8 years ago when I was talking to him. They might have changed because they might have recognized that that's not a great strat in the long run. But I don't know, like when I was working on them, I was like, I can see what's going on here, because like I would like do these really nice paintings and they would love them, but then I would do like this really rough like line drawing, and they'd be like, oh, that's perfect. Then they'll focus like on the idea rather than the painting. So some studios work this way, but not all. So just be very aware of that. You know, like they're like an outlier. They're not the rule. They're the exception to the rule kind of thing.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, because if you expect that in any other studio, right? If you show up at like 343 and all right, guys, I'm gonna do these super loose drawings, they're just like, no, bitch, these need to be super precise. You know, you're gonna show us exactly what it could be. You know, you're like, what? Oh no. Most studios prefer that, to be honest. They don't mind like having loose sketches like in the beginning, but those sketches need to be refined at some point. But like I said, I think Arenanet, they're like, no, we're cool. Like, we have talented modelers, and then the modelers are like in the corner, like, we're not that talented. Give us more information. And they're like, no, you guys are good. They're like, no, give us orthographics. No, they're good. I feel like that's just true. I don't know. I can't speak for them. I don't work there directly. I work as a contractor, you know? But I have a feeling that's what's going on. I know too many modelers for that not to be true. You know?
Yeah, I think
There's-
like Guild Wars are very like wild and chaotic.
Yeah.
design.
Concept art, we got orgasms all day by looking at their work, right? Modelers, nightmares. And so like I said, I can't speak for what they do now. Like I'm not trying to talk smack because they make good art and good games. I'm just saying that they're clearly an exception. That's all I'm getting at. Okay, and you have to take that as it is. Otherwise, you'll be sorely disappointed when you work for some other studio. That's why I always encourage range, the ability to draw super tight as well as super loose. I can do both. You know what I mean? But it's harder to draw super tight if all you can do is super loose. Does that make sense? It's much easier to go the other way, right? It's much easier for me to like simplify my ideas instead of rendering them, you know, than it is to like manifest my ideas in a very clear and concise way. That's much harder to do. And that's why I encourage people to do that, even if ultimately at the end they don't do that, right, for their own professional work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like because then you're doing it by choice, not by as a consequence of your lack of skill. Make sense?
Yeah.
It's a clear choice that you decided to paint more sketchy versus I only can paint sketchy. You know, and I think that's a better position to be in because then you can have more opportunities. Like if you decide, you know what, I'm done with this sketchy bullshit, I want to try other stuff, and then you can. You can't do it all the way around. And like I said, there's less people that are going to be very receptive to sketchy stuff. It's just how it is in the industry. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
All right, folks. Have a great week. Work your butts off. I think Jordan, in your case, you're gonna have to like supplement your time here and there because definitely starting Wednesday, there's gonna be a lot of GDC partying and stuff, and then definitely the weekend. That's when like a lot of the expo stuff starts to happen too, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. My friend was like, "Oh, you're coming in the beginning of the week, dude. All the stuff happens on the weekend." And I'm like, "What? Have you not been to GDC before? All the stuff happens like during the week, like all the parties and stuff. You know, everyone like tries to get all the party out of them until the event actually happens. You know." And he's starting to recognize it's like, oh yeah, holy shit, there's all these things going on Tuesday, Wednesday, because we're trying to like schedule it, and it's like everything's overlapping. There's too many things going on.
Okay.
So yeah, you start to think about when and how you're going to get the work done. You won't have the advantage that your classmates are going to have since you're going to be going to this event, but it'll be forgiven. You're already kind of ahead. So just try to be smart. Okay.
So
Okay.
it's Wednesday the 27th, right?
Yeah. Let me look at the calendar just to double check. Yes.
Cool.
All right. Peace out, friends. Have a great day and a great week, and I'll see you guys soon. And Jordan, I'll see you sooner.
Yeah. See you later.
Same.
Latest, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.